She's not even that smart. She's just holding a book. All right, let's take off some Belle girlies. One of the most affiliated cues I receive when I talk about Disney princesses is what is your problem? Is just what is your problem, full stop, honestly, usually is a rhetorical question. But one variation on that I receive quite a lot is what is your problem with Belle? I'm always saying I like Belle fine, and then I'll turn around and talk crap. So let's get into it. It does seem like I should be a Belle girly. I am a bookish brunette millennial. I am right in the pocket, and I do like her. I liked her as a kid. I like her now, but we've never 100% connected the way I do with some others. To be totally fair to Belle, which I don't need to be, she's not a real person. To be fair to Belle, I am sometimes a little bit unjust in the way I paint her as some sort of pick-me. Some aspects of Beauty and the Beast, the 1991 Disney animated movie, have not aged super well, in my opinion. One of those aspects is the way some other female characters are framed. There's a real not like other girls thing going on where we show how great Belle is by contrasting her with a gross sexist stereotype. And I'm not wild about that. Isn't he dreaming? It's tempting to attribute that perspective to Belle specifically, but I don't know if that's accurate because Belle seems to have an equal disdain for everybody in her town, not just the young women. If you look at what she says and does, Belle is a perfectly nice young lady. I'm just not sure she works as a character, specifically as a protagonist. I recently made a video about Sleeping Beauty, and I said that Aurora is different from most of the other Disney princesses because she is not really the protagonist of her own movie. I said Jasmine potentially also would fit this description, but I didn't mention Belle. Belle gets a lot more screen time in her film than those other two ladies, and she seems to be more of a main character, but it's worth considering how she actually functions in the story. If we want to look at Belle's journey, how she changes to get where she ends up, we have to start at the beginning, see where she is and what she wants. And that's really tricky because I've seen this movie a couple times and I don't think I know what Belle wants. The thing that made Disney Renaissance films so great, it was a lot of things. One thing that made them so great was the brilliance of combining those two quintessential American mediums, the Disney-style animated feature film and the Broadway musicale.
Winter musicale.
Obviously, Disney movies had music from the very beginning, but starting with The Little Mermaid in 1989, they started to borrow the structure of the Broadway musical.
Howard brought something unique to The Little Mermaid. He brought musical theater to animation in a way that hadn't happened before.
At the same time, the animated Disney classics were being made is also the golden age of the Broadway musical.
Howard saw animation as a way of keeping musicals alive because there's an inherent stylization in animation.
Music may have more license, the animated film, in the same way that it does in the theater, simply because the level of reality is different. So you want music to be information. You want it to develop story or character in some way, so the song will carry its own weight and justify its existence in the film.
The Disney movies of the 90s didn't have songs just scattered whenever a song might be good. They had songs placed with extreme intention. There wasn't just a first song, there was an opening number. There wasn't just a fun song somewhere, there was a showstopper dance number. There was an 11 o'clock number. There were reprises that brought back musical themes from earlier in the work.
We don't listen to the overture. We won't recognize the musical themes when they come back later.
And there was an I Want song. In fact, people have said that the term I Want song, as opposed to what could have been a more poetic word for this number, that was coined by Howard Ashman, the composer behind these Disney movies.
Part of your world is obviously that genre of song that Howard Ashman would call the I Want song. It's that moment when your protagonist says, this is what I want in my life.
I'm not sure he was really the first to call it that. He certainly didn't invent it. It had existed on Broadway for decades. But Howard Ashman and Alan Menken definitely popularized the term in the popular conversation.
This kind of song exists in the Broadway musical from Wouldn't It Be Loverly, Eliza Doolittle, and My Fair Lady, Tells Us What She Wants, Rodgers and Hammerstein. Every show, the leading lady has a chance to plunk herself down on a tree trunk somewhere and to sing about what she dreams about. And she sings, this is what I want. It's called the Girls I Want song.
This is the moment in time where the audience just falls in love with your character. And the way that they fall in love with you is because you want something. And there's some sadness, there's a little bit of longing, and there's just some kind of way that you can connect with the audience. It's that simple little vulnerability.
Disney, of course, didn't invent any of these conventions, but during the Disney Renaissance, with collaborations between Howard Ashman, Alan Menken, Steven Schwartz, and more, they really got it down to a science.
It's a classic kind of song. The Venus of Wish is one. Snow White, somehow they got away with two. But I'm Wishing and Someday My Prince are exactly the same song.
I want to be where the people are.
When will my reflection shine? What's around the river bend? People won't come here from everywhere. Lights will appear. Lead me out into the light. It calls me.
Nowadays, when I see people explaining elements of story structure, like the I Want song, they almost always use a Disney movie as an example because, well, everybody knows them, and they are so textbook. Half of the I Want songs in the Disney canon contain the words I want, and then what the character wants. It sounds kind of clumsy when you put it that way, and maybe it is, but it's worth being as explicit as you can in a children's movie.
Wanna see him dancing?
You're not going to miss what the film's about. That's the central issue of the entire film. That by having her sing it, it makes that point indelible. She wishes she were here.
I can look at other Disney princess films or other Disney Renaissance films, find that I Want song, and hear not just what the protagonist says they want, but why they want it. What's the deeper need there? I can get some imagery or some metaphors for the thing they want and how they're trying to get it, and I can see the groundwork laid for the rest of the story. By the time we've finished the movie, I can refer back to the I Want song and see how the character has grown and changed. In some ways, they will have accomplished what they want, but in a different way than they expected. They've learned something along the way. So let's look at Belle's I Want song. Does Belle have an I Want song? The closest thing Belle has to a classic Disney I Want song is the reprise of Belle. Girl doesn't even get her own I Want song. Beauty and the Beast starts with a prologue and then the opening number, Belle, which is sung about Belle, not by her. The rest of the townspeople are talking about how weird and also beautiful and also weird and also beautiful she is. Belle sings a little bit in the song, and she has a little bit of dialogue, and then later she gets a reprise where she sings a whole verse by herself. If you add all of those lyrics together, it's less than 150 words, a lot of which is the same phrases repeated. So we don't have a lot of material to work with, but let's do our best. Little town, it's a quiet village. Okay, she lives in a little town. Every day like the one before. It's monotonous. Little town, full of little people. So the town is small and so are the people. Waking up to say, bonjour, 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 bonjour. There goes the baker with his tray like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell. So it's a day like any other. It's monotonous. Every morning just the same. Since the morning that we came, it's always the same. It's monotonous. Can't imagine what that's like. To this poor provincial town. The town is small and it's poor and provincial. There must be more than this provincial life. Ooh, that's a wondering. That's kind of close to a want. So she's in her sad, tired old life and she's bored. She's thinking perhaps there's something else. Good, good. She's returning the book she borrowed. She loved it, but she wants something new. And they don't have anything new, so she borrows an old favorite. Far-off places, daring sword fights, magic spells, a prince in disguise. The bookseller tells her to just keep the book she likes, and she protests at first, but he insists. She has to have it since she loves it so much. He can see that this is special to her, that she loves reading, and this book in particular has touched her somehow, so he generously doesn't even ask for payment. He just wants to give her the book. I'm sure Belle feels touched and grateful to be understood and valued and gifted in this way. I'm sure. Now Belle's talking to some sheep about the book. Now, isn't this amazing? It's my favorite part because you'll see, here's where she meets Prince Charming, but she won't discover that it's him till chapter 3. She's not saying she wants that, but it's something she likes, so progress. There must be more than this provincial life. Okay, so that song gave us some characterization of Belle, mainly that she's very beautiful and very weird. And it gives us the fact that she's dissatisfied, she's restless, she's bored. That's very princess of her. Most of these girlies start with that same feeling. So great, Belle, you've got a reprise. Bring us home. What is it you are actually missing? What is it you affirmatively want beyond just being kind of bored?
This is the day your dreams come true.
What do you know about my dreams?
Say you'll marry me.
Gaston has asked her to marry him, and she's horrified. Can you imagine? He asked me to marry him. Me, the wife of that boorish, brainless Madame Gaston. Can't you just see it? Madame Gaston, his little wife? Okay, you don't want to marry Gaston. I've got it. And you're so valid for that, Belle. He sucks for real. No, sir, not me. I guarantee it. I want much more than this provincial life. You don't want him. You don't want what a life with him would imply. Great, I love it. What is it you do want? I want. Look at that, guys. We have an I want line. She's gonna say what she wants. I want adventure in the great wide somewhere. Okay. We want adventure in the great wide somewhere. What does that mean? I want it more than I can tell. No, I heard that you want it, but I don't know. But what is it? And for once, it might be grand to have someone understand. I want so much more than they've got planned. These lyrics taken together are filling the role of Belle's I Want song, and they are almost entirely written in the negative. Basically, all but 2 lines are about what Belle doesn't want, about how she doesn't want what she has, and she doesn't want what other people want to offer her. Belle, that is so unhelpful. I understand you don't like what you have, but I am looking for what you affirmatively do desire, and all you can do is talk about what you hate. Belle is like those men on Hinge who will look at the About Me section and instead of saying anything about them, will write an essay about all the kinds of women they don't like. Swipe left if you're ugly. Swipe left if you already have children. No out of shape women. No feminists. Besides the fact that you sound like a horrible person, that wasn't the question. The question was about you. And we're looking for what you're looking for. Why are you talking about all these things you don't want? That's what I feel like hearing from Belle right now. Belle, the assignment was an I want song, was to fill in the blank. I want this. You've written an I don't want song. This is an I don't want song. Imagine if other princesses' I want songs were structured like this. Ariel says, flipping your fins, you don't get too far. Legs are required for jumping, dancing, strolling along on the street. I'm leaving that in, that was funny. We hear that she's dissatisfied and she doesn't like what she's currently been offered. And then we hear about the positive, the things she does want, and what she believes it will get her. Imagine if part of your world was just flipping your fins, you don't get too far. Fins suck. They're ugly and uncomfortable, and I hate fins, and everybody that likes their fins is stupid. Look at me. I will never pass for a perfect bride or a perfect daughter. I'm a terrible daughter. I would make a terrible wife, and I don't even want to be a wife. I don't want these men, and these men don't want me. My life is terrible. I'm a failure at everything. What's that? A mirror? No, I don't need to look in that. There's no metaphorical resonance to be found there. Let's talk more about how I'd be a bad wife. I know everybody on this island seems so happy. I have my role. Maybe I can live with that, but it's so hard. There's a voice inside me, I guess. I don't know what it's saying. It's saying something else. I don't know. But this island sucks. I'm tired of coconuts. Mama, I don't have time for dancing. That's gonna have to wait. 'Cause I don't know, maybe going somewhere at some point. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, but all I know is that dancing's not for me. In fact, let me talk more about how I don't want to dance. For no particular reason, though. Nobody else's song is like this. Nobody else just sings a whole song about what they don't like for a reason. It doesn't do a good job of giving your story a sense of direction and magnitude.
Direction and magnitude.
And also, you run the very real risk of having your main character come off like kind of a jerk. Disney's Hercules has a fabulous I Want song, also composed by Alan Menken with lyrics by David Zippel. And in researching for this video, I learned that their first attempt at an I Want song for Hercules was more focused on Hercules feeling out of place in his town.
We started with a song called Shooting Star, about how he just didn't fit in. Shooting star goes across the twilight sky, 'cause he knows he doesn't quite fit in, and he's longing to Snow White. Beautiful song we had written for Hercules, but it was too soft. This kid it's so strong.
It was essentially an I Don't Want song, quite similar to Belle in a lot of ways, but the difference here, of course, is that the artists realized this wasn't strong enough and they needed to rewrite the song to be more focused on what Hercules does want.
I have often dreamed of a far-off place.
Because who wants to root for a protagonist that can't even tell you what they want? But to be fair, in my eternal quest for fairness, we do have that 2 lines. We do have an affirmative I want statement. I want adventure in the great wide somewhere. I want it more than I can tell. And for once, it might be grand to have someone understand I want so much more than they've got planned. That's almost there. Like, to be understood. That's an essential human desire. She does want to be understood. She wants someone to understand. But what does she want someone to understand? She wants someone to understand that she wants... And what does she want? She wants more than they've got planned. So she wants someone to get that she doesn't want this. Why is she constitutionally incapable of making a statement in the positive? Even the magnitude of her desire is framed in the negative. I want it more than I can tell. Will I tell you how badly I want this thing? No, I can't. All we have to go on is I want adventure in the great wide somewhere. It's just like the somewhere. That's as specific as she can get. The great wide somewhere. So looking at both of these songs together, I guess we have some context for what Belle means by adventure. There's adventure in her stories. Far-off places, daring sword fights, magic spells, a prince in disguise. Belle has been living vicariously through the characters in the books she reads, but that doesn't feel like enough anymore. She doesn't want to be the observer anymore. She wants to be the one experiencing the adventure. She doesn't want to hear about sword fights. She wants to sword fight. She doesn't want to hear about magic spells. She wants to do or receive a magic spell. She doesn't want to hear about a prince in disguise. She wants to, I guess be a prince in disguise is a possibility, or at the very least, really meet one. Be that girl who doesn't know it's him till chapter 3. She does seem to want drama and excitement, something to break up that monotony. But overwhelmingly, she just doesn't want to be where she is. She doesn't like her little town. She's disdainful of it. It's poor and provincial, and the people are small. So okay, that's something. It's not nearly as clear or explicit as it is in other movies, but if you watch the opening of this movie, you can put together a starting place for our protagonist. She's feeling dissatisfied and bored and trapped. She wants excitement. She wants whatever adventure in the great wide somewhere means. And she wants somebody to recognize that. She wants someone else who also feels dissatisfied and stuck. She wants a world that is expansive and novel. And if she had somebody with her in that desire and in achieving that desire, then she would feel understood. That's the deeper human need that she's missing. In this little town, she doesn't feel understood. Okay, great. Is that what the movie's about? Because I don't think that's what this movie's about. So we meet Belle in stasis in her innocent world of childhood, and then she's launched into the journey. What happens? Belle's beloved father has been imprisoned in a creepy castle by a fearsome beast. Belle is afraid he'll die in there, so she offers herself instead. She promises that she will live in the castle forever if the beast lets her father go. The beast is extremely mean, but the enchanted objects who run the household are very nice. They take great care of Belle, they are nice to her, she gets to be friends with them, and they convince the beast to be a little nicer to her. Belle doesn't know this at the time, but they are actually playing matchmaker. They are trying to nudge Beast and Belle together into a relationship because that will break the curse that the entire castle is under. Belle is completely resigned to her fate. She is making no effort to reason with or overcome the beast or escape the castle, but because of the intervention of the enchanted objects, she does not have to sleep in the dungeon like her father did. She is given a beautiful room and full run of the castle, except for the West Wing. She is explicitly told not to go to the West Wing, so she does that immediately, and it's a little weird and scary. Everything's broken, broken, the portrait is slashed, and there's some sort of magical rose in a cloche. When the Beast sees her invading this private space, he loses it, he yells at her and smashes more things, and Belle decides she's done. She runs out of the castle, gets on her horse, and rides into the woods. She's immediately set upon by a pack of wolves, and things look really bad for a minute, but the Beast has followed her, and he fights off the wolves. Beast was injured in the fight, and instead of continuing her escape, Belle decides to help him back to the castle and tend to his wounds. She Florence Nightingales over him, they snap at each other, Belle gives as good as she gets and scolds him. Shortly after, the Beast makes a big fuss out of showing Belle the library that he has in his castle. He tells Belle that it's hers, and I'm not sure what that means in the context of her being a prisoner in the castle, but she definitely gets to read all the books, and she loves that because she loves books. Belle and the Beast are now very friendly. She dines with him, which she initially refused to do. She offers him smiles and validation and gently coaches him in gentleness. One evening, they have a special night together where she comes in a massive ball gown and sort of debuts into an empty ballroom. They dine and they dance together, but Belle's still sad about something, and she admits to Beast that she's worried about her father. Beast's feelings for Belle has grown, and he can no longer hold her prisoner if she's going to be unhappy. So he tells her she can go back home to see her father, that she is released from her promise. Belle hurries back home, finds her father ill, and more importantly, endangered by the threat of institutionalization. The jilted suitor Gaston has hatched a plan. He's not taking no for an answer this time. If Belle doesn't agree to come and be his wife, then he will have her father thrown in an asylum. He's able to justify this to the town because Maurice and Belle are both telling tales about the Beast, which sounds fantastical until Belle is able to prove he exists with the magic mirror. Suddenly, the plan changes. Gaston accepts that the Beast exists, but now is going to go kill the Beast. Gaston rallies an angry mob to storm the castle and fight the enchanted objects while he goes to kill the Beast. This is pretty easy to do because Beast is very depressed and essentially letting Gaston do it. But when Belle catches up and Beast sees that she's returned for him, he suddenly wants to fight. Beast defeats Gaston but gets a mortal wound in the process, and as Belle is crying over his dying body, she confesses that she loves him. And that breaks the curse, which we knew it would from the prologue, but Belle is just finding out now that that's what the rose was all about. That's why the enchanted objects were playing matchmaker. The Beast was really a prince in disguise the whole time. He actually looks like this, which she is definitely super thrilled by. So the curse is broken, Gaston is dead, Belle's father is better, I guess, and the two of them live happily ever after. The end. So that's Belle's story, and it's great. It's a beautiful tale about the everlasting triumph of true love, and it has absolutely nothing to do with That I Want song. This is not a story that takes place in the Great Wide Somewhere or even has any relation to the Great Wide Somewhere. This is one of the most location-locked films that Disney has ever made. The whole thing takes place in just the one castle. She starts in the town and then travels straight to the castle and then does a movie in the castle, except for the brief part where she travels straight back into town and then right back to the castle. Because Beauty and the Beast is not a quest story. It's not about a journey. It's not about being a fish out of water in a new place. It's about a relationship. It's about the one-to-one relationship between Belle and the Beast that takes place in the forced proximity of the castle. If adventure in the Great Wide Somewhere literally means travel, that Belle doesn't want to feel stuck and confined, she wants to see new places, then she absolutely does not get what she wants. She's married to a landed aristocrat now. She is mistress of a whole castle full of people that she now feels very invested in community with. She is much more firmly anchored to a specific location than she was at the start of the film, when the only thing keeping her there was her father. And there's no indication that she'll get what she wants after the story ends. There's no hint that Belle and Beast's life together might include traveling the world. If we work completely outside of the text, you can imagine that, okay, if the prince is rich, then he could fund Belle's travel, but that's not something that's in the movie. That's not in the text. Nobody even mentions something about that. We get no indication that the Beast is interested in travel, or that he would want Belle to do it without him. If adventure means danger and drama, there's certainly danger and drama in the movie, but it's not something that happens to Belle. It's something that Belle gets to be nearby. There are magic spells, but none that happen to her. There are fights that she witnesses. Belle gets to be a spectator to a grand adventure full of violence and magic and redemption and transformation. She gets to see it happen up close, which is more exciting than reading about it in a book, but it's not the same thing as it happening to you. So at the end of the day, it's the Beast's story, isn't it? It's his journey. We start with a prologue where he's cursed, and the whole thing is about his quest to get turned back into a man and what that requires of him. He's the one who learns and grows and changes. He's the one that thought he knew what he wanted, but in the end finds something even more important.
You must go to him.
I'm free?
He gets the magic spells and daring sword fights. He gets to be the prince in disguise. He gets to be the protagonist. Belle is a Disney Renaissance princess, and at first, she seems to be similar to Ariel and Mulan and Pocahontas and Jasmine. But if you look at the role she plays in the story, she's really much more like the classic princesses. She's much more like Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora. She's a very static character. She starts off wonderful and admirable, and her positive traits impact the story much more than her choices and actions do. Her impact is mostly about how the people around her can learn from her virtue. It's actually quite similar to Snow White. Bad things happen to her, and she perseveres with a positive attitude, and her great qualities teach others. They cause others to grow and change. But unlike those classic princesses, and unlike all of the other Disney princess characters, that virtue doesn't lead to Belle achieving all of her wildest dreams and more. In my opinion, a defining characteristic of the Disney princess narrative is that our princess doesn't just succeed. She doesn't just get a happy ending. She gets the capital H happy ending. She gets the Disney princess victory. Complete, uncompromised victory beyond even her wildest imaginings, and her imaginings were wild. She wins it all. She takes it all, and she leaves the haters weeping. These are victories that reject compromise. The princesses don't have to bend on their values or their desires to get what they need to get. They don't have to choose between possible paths. They get to capital H have it all. Princesses don't just overcome the immediate obstacle, they change their worlds for the better. Their communities or whole societies are changed by their journey.
Might our young people decide for themselves who they will love?
They've gotten what they wanted. They've gotten the deeper, truer thing that they wanted beneath that. They've gotten rid of the whole reason there was any chance they wouldn't get it. And they've gotten a bunch of other things they didn't even know to ask for. Everybody but Belle. Belle does have a happy ending. Her father survives. She's going to marry a man that she loves and live in this castle as a wealthy woman. Things all look great for her. But she's compromised on everything she's ever said she wanted. And we never even see the moment she consciously does it. The movie entirely forgets that there were once things she wanted. She wanted travel and adventure and excitement. And not only does she give them up, she doesn't even mention giving them up. She's out of the little town. She's moved into a different place, the castle. She's married to a man that loves her, and she loves back. And that's wonderful. But he doesn't really understand her. Not deeply. The big moment that's supposed to show us, the audience, that the Beast really understands Belle, that makes her feel seen, makes her start to really let down her guard, is when he gives her a library. Because he's noticed she loves books, which any of the townspeople in the poor provincial town could have told you. Hardly the first time she's been gifted books.
If you like it all that much, it's yours.
This is a level of understanding that the bookseller had. It wouldn't show that Beast truly understands Belle personally for him to realize she likes books and go get her some books. But for the record, he doesn't even do that. It's Lumiere's idea to show Belle the library.
I want to do something for her. But what?
It has to be something very special. Something that sparks her interest. Wait a minute.
Belle's wants and needs are hardly the foundation of the relationship, which was entirely built on what the Beast needed from her. Beast's personal arc of learning to love another person selflessly culminates in the moment where he lets Belle go. He sees how much pain it's causing her to be kept here away from her father, who needs her, and even though it means giving up his chance at breaking the curse, he lets her leave. And in this conversation, they throw in that word understand. So maybe the movie is suggesting that this is the moment where Beast really understands who Belle is.
Thank you for understanding how much he needs me.
So I guess he understands that Belle loves her father? It's already a little sad to think that understanding Belle has nothing to do with her passions or dreams for herself, but are entirely about her devotion to her father. But more importantly, this still doesn't take any understanding on Beast's part. Belle's devotion to her father was very clear to the Beast from day one.
Take his place?
And this, again, is the same level of understanding that all the townspeople have about Belle. Everybody knows this.
Belle would do anything to keep him from being locked up.
The servants of the castle like her. Her good qualities are celebrated, but her deeper needs are unmet, and her assumptions are unquestioned, and her growth is completely ignored. The only other Disney princess who doesn't get the full princess victory is Pocahontas. The ending of her film needs to reconcile a fictionalized relationship with real-life history, and it ends up somewhere in the neighborhood of melancholy. She's the only princess that has a love interest, but doesn't end up with him at the end of the film. So she doesn't get that part of the full princess victory, but at least her I Want song wasn't about wanting a man. She was on a journey of self-discovery, which she has completed. She has come of age. She now understands how she fits in with her world, and she has changed her community for the better. Pocahontas holds on to all her dreams until the very end, and mourns the one she isn't able to achieve. The only way I can think of Belle's ending as a happy ending is if she has learned that she didn't want the things she thought she wanted, that she gets a little taste of what real adventure and danger would be like, and she decides that's not for me. Actually, I do want the quiet life. I do want to settle down in one place. But unlike in Pocahontas, we don't mourn with her for these lost possibilities. They just vanish from her horizon without comment. None of the other princess films end this way. Aurora doesn't give up on her dream prince from the woods because she's realized that was a childish fantasy and she actually prefers the prince that her parents picked out. She gets to have them both. They're the same man. She gets the true love of her heart, and she gets to make her family happy, and return to her rightful home and live in luxury, and be with her aunts. She gets to have everything. Moana doesn't go out to the ocean and realize it's actually terrible, that she was wrong about the ocean calling her, that all she had to do was put in a pool, and then she can be happy on her island. No, the ocean called her, she was right, and everybody else has to get on board. Mulan doesn't realize that being true to herself is more important than bringing her family honor. She brings her family honor by being true to herself, and keeps her family safe, and gets her man, and saves China. Only Belle is expected to quietly put away her childish things and be satisfied with a life that is lovely, but doesn't give her self-actualization. I anticipate that I'll get a lot of comments disagreeing with this take, which, to be clear, I'm totally fine with as long as they're respectful. A lot of people are very attached to Belle, and a lot of people are understandably defensive about Beauty and the Beast. Even before the Disney movie, the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale does catch a lot of crap in feminist revisitations of fairy tales. The conventional wisdom about the fairy tale is that it was a tool to help girls and young women resign themselves to horrific forced marriages. Yes, this man seems like a monster, but if you start treating him well before he treats you well, if you extend your love and affection and understanding, then you might be surprised that one day he returns it. Your love and your love as a woman is so powerful and so transformative that it can make a prince even out of this horrible beast. This is not a tale a society needs to tell if it's not very oppressive to women and girls. And it's worth noting that in the modern day, where we are constantly retelling and adapting and remixing fairy tales, A lot of people like to retell fairy tales with a gender swap, but not Beauty and the Beast. For some reason, that one always stays a female beauty and a male beast. But you might say it's selling the fairy tale short to label it as just a lesson in accepting your fate, that it's also a beautiful story about seeing beyond appearances, and that love is about more than physical beauty. Love has a transformational power. The Disney movie, in many ways, leaned into those aspects. It tells us explicitly it is a story about seeing beyond appearances.
For beauty is found within.
But it is still a story where a woman ends up marrying a man who's treated her very horribly, and that's always gotten a lot of pushback. If you were around for the mid-2010s princess backlash, the wave of, at best, critical reconsideration, and at worst, really bad faith attacks on the princess canon, you'll remember Belle and Beauty and the Beast being a common target. If this is a movie you love and you've gotten used to people saying Stockholm Syndrome and bestiality and other sort of nonsense attacks, then I can understand you'd have a really defensive position. It's not a story of Stockholm Syndrome. It's not about how men are inherently animals and we should accept that. It's not any of those extremes, but sometimes I've noticed y'all like to hear something being degraded or being called sexist, and you notice that's unfair. So then you'll pick it up and you'll dust it off and you'll be like, that was so unfair that they called you anti-feminist. So you must be feminist. You must actually be the most feminist thing. This must actually be empowering. And I'm not sure that's true either. So maybe if we resist the urge to rush to an extreme, we can accept that this is a beautiful story about the redemptive power of love with a very admirable and empowered main character who also gives up on all her dreams and whose happy ending begins and ends with her man. In my Sleeping Beauty video, I argued for it to be seen as a feature and not a bug, that Aurora does not fit the typical mold of a Hollywood protagonist. Sometimes stuff just happens to you. Sleeping Beauty is a fairy tale, and there's nothing more true to its fairy tale roots than keeping the characters simple and archetypal and putting them in a world where things are more decided by magic and fate and powerful beings than they are by the choices of our individual human characters. She is a native of fairy tale land. She is not the captain of her own character development. She's a princess. A lot of that argument can be applied to Beauty and the Beast. At the end of the day, I'm not concerned that Belle is too passive, that things happen to her too much, that she doesn't drive the story with her quest for her desires enough. I'm okay with that. Maybe Belle's not really the protagonist, but she can still be a perfectly fine central character that the rest of the story moves around. Just like Aurora is not the protagonist, but I still think it's her story.
Her story? Her story.
I'm okay that Aurora doesn't do much, but she still makes sense. I understand Aurora and what kind of a person she is and what she wants and why she does the few things that she does do. If a character is simple and archetypal, theoretically, that means that they are clear. I shared a quote from Philip Pullman, who said that there is no psychology in a fairy tale and compared the characters in fairy tales to paper puppets, perfectly flat, cut out paper puppets. Only one side of them is visible to the audience, but that is the only side we need. The other side is blank. They are depicted in poses of intense activity or passion, so that their part in the drama can be easily read from a distance. That's the flip side of a character being archetypal or simple. That they're simple, that they are clear and legible. Belle is not clear and legible as a character. Little Miss Great Wide Somewhere is completely incoherent. Let me ask you this. Near the beginning of the film, Beast is holding Belle's father captive and says that he'll let her father go if she agrees to come live with him forever. And even though he's frightening and horrible and a monster, and he's violent, and he's threatening her father, and she would have to be trapped in this horrible dungeon for the rest of her life, Belle loves her father so much that she says yes, and she makes the trade.
You have my word.
Done.
It's a real strong character choice. Belle loves her father a lot. And then near the end of the movie, Gaston is holding Belle's father captive and threatening him and says, Belle, I'll let your father go if you come live with me. If you marry me and move into my house, I will let him go. And Belle says, no.
One little word, Belle, that's all it takes.
Never.
She says, no, never. I would never do that, which is understandable because Gaston, he sucks for real. He's threatening her father, okay? He is violent and horrible, and she would be miserable trapped in a marriage with him. All that's true. But that was also true about her choice at the beginning of the movie. She's willing to do this to save her father at the beginning of the movie and not willing to do it to save her father at the end of the movie. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why. I can't figure out what personal growth Belle has undergone that has made her now weigh her father's life and her own differently. The only thing that's changed is she's now kind of in a sort of maybe relationship with Beast. Is that why? Because she now already has a guy? Maybe Belle refuses because she thinks of herself as taken now. Or maybe the Beast's original offer was more attractive than Gaston's. The audience is meant to understand that Gaston is considered handsome, but Belle personally has never been attracted to him. On the other hand, the Beast is offering something more interesting, at least. Belle takes a second before she makes her deal. She gives the Beast a look up and down, and plenty of people interpret this as attraction on Belle's part. She does a little eye flicker here, and plenty of people interpret this as Belle realizing maybe she can work with this. Now, if you follow this reading of the scene, the moral of the film falls apart pretty fast. This can't be a story about seeing beyond appearances to the man within or learning to be worthy of love if Belle had the hots for Beast from day one, even as he terrorized her. This interpretation is not very flattering to Belle, but it would make a lot of things make more sense. I don't think that's the answer. I think there's no answer. I think she makes two different choices in the same situation at different points because that's what she needs to do for the story. And that's what makes her look good because her character is completely incoherent. In fact, at the beginning of the movie, Belle makes this trade and agrees that she will live in the castle as the Beast prisoner and does not attempt to escape. I guess she has like a thing about honor. I guess when she made the promise to stay, like that was really important to her, more important than like her freedom and her life.
You have my word.
Okay, fine. And then she goes into the West Wing because she's curious because that's what the story needed her to do. The Beast yells at her really bad, which he has done before. And she's like, you know what? Actually, that's it. I'm done.
Where are you going?
Promise or no promise, I can't stay here another minute.
Why? And then like the Beast comes after her and saves her from the wolves. And she's like, okay, he saved my life. I'm going to take care of him. I guess I can kind of wrap my head around that. But she makes no like further attempts to leave. And all of these actions coming from the same character doesn't have an internal logic. I know I'm being hard on Belle, and it might seem silly to say she's not an adequately feminist role model when she's standing next to characters like Snow White or Cinderella, but the movie is asking me to evaluate her this way. If I'm supposed to laugh at these women for being airheaded and boy crazy, then I'm going to expect that my protagonist really is empowered, that she does have more going on than just her relationship. If I'm supposed to scoff at one potential suitor who doesn't understand Belle at all, then I'm going to expect that the supposedly good option does get her deeply. It promises a certain kind of protagonist and then doesn't deliver. Belle is not like the other Disney Renaissance leads. She is not a traditional Hollywood protagonist. She's not performing that function well, but she's also not a classic fairy tale character. Disney took Beauty and the Beast, one of the fairy tales with the greatest potential for sexist overtones, and wanted to adapt that for the 1990s, in an age where they were touting how empowered and feisty and interesting their female characters were. And Belle says all the right things. The movie tells us she's not like other girls. She turns down a marriage proposal. She wrinkles her nose at traditional femininity. But that all stays on the surface. She continues to be buffeted around by the waves of the plot that is so much bigger than her and ends up completely secondary to the growth of the prince. She's victim to the belief that feminism is a coat of paint that can be put over any old tale, even one explicitly written to tell girls to accept their oppression. She's smart and funny and endlessly compassionate. And what does she get for it? She gets so much less than any of the other princesses. I want better for her. She deserves better. And I think she gets better in the headcanon version of Beauty and the Beast that lives in the minds and hearts of many Belle girlies. I think lots of fans hold in their hearts a version of this story where Belle does get what she deserves, where anything happens to her in this story that is better than what she has in the first scene when that bookseller gives her a book, that it isn't all downhill from there. I think many people have rewritten this movie to be one where Belle is respected and cherished and valued and achieves the kind of uncompromising victory that the rest of the princesses enjoy. And that's a nice story. It's just not what's in this movie. It's still a beautiful film with some of the best music Disney has ever created and some stunning sequences of animation, and it's just great fun. I think the artists at Disney did a great job adapting this old fairy tale for the 1990s. Maybe they did the best you possibly could have done, but whatever they did was never going to change the core of this story, which had already been written, that this is a tale about a woman resigning herself to make the best of things. Tale as old as time.
There are two separate traditions of music and film that have nothing to do with this narrative, informational kind of song. And this is very different than the stage music. There are set piece songs that are justified by realistic action. Okay, that's the Busby Berkeley film, where all of the songs are justified by the fact that they're putting on a show. So they're rehearsing a song, so it's okay for Ruby Keeler and Dick Powell to sing. And then there's a tradition of music as background, and which has been evolving with music video, in a sense, to a new place. Music, songs simply on the soundtrack as if the narrator is saying something. As if the narrator is going, ooh, 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 staying alive, staying alive. I mean, who is singing that, right? But if you take it seriously and look at it as structure, who's singing that is God out there. Who's singing that is the narrator's voice. Who's singing that is the filmmaker making a comment